organic fertilizers or organic inputs, what do you recommend and how often to apply them? I know it's a very broad question, but throwing that at you, see if you can answer that.
It is a broad question. So I use amendments, right? I use soil amendments to balance my soil, and then I focus on making those amendments available to the plant and usable by the plant through adding amino acids, enzymes, carbohydrates, polysaccharides, biology, and filling in the gaps of the soil food web. So fertilizers is kind of a funny word. So in terms of fertilizers, I guess the fertilizers that I use would be sources of soy amino acids as my cation form of nitrogen, the NH4 positive, right? Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. They're also needed for the formation of enzymes. I focus a lot on amino acids in my grow. Also, the cation form of nitrogen found in amino acids doesn't leach, right? You hear about like nitrate runoff and stuff and how it affects the environment. This doesn't. It holds on to the negative charge cation exchange sites in the soil better, so that doesn't rinse out, opposed to the NO3 negative anion that a lot of nitrogen sources are. So in terms of fertilizer, I use a lot of soy-based amino acids. I also use a lot of micronized inputs. So I'll use things like micronized langbeinite, which is sulfur, potassium, magnesium, right? It's a mineral that is rich in sulfur, potassium, and magnesium. And if I need those nutrient sources, those elements in my soil, or my plants require them, I'll add them in micronized form into a solution with like some fulvic acid or some humic acid to kind of create my own carbon-based fertilizers. I'll also use things like micronized rock phosphate, which is calcium phosphate. So it has a lot of calcium, it has a lot of phosphate in it. And phosphate is a key part of energy production inside of a plant. Same thing with nitrogen. So there's, I think it's ATP, adenine triphosphate, I think is how you pronounce it, right? And it's formed with nitrogen and phosphorus, right? And when you introduce both of them, you're kind of creating an energy source for the plant. So I focus a lot on amino acids, micronized inputs, calcium, phosphate, potassium, in micronized forms after I've custom built my soil to have a balance of these different nutrients with things like gypsum, fishbone meal, green sand, crab meal, shrimp meal, kelp meal, langbeinite, like I had mentioned. What else is in my soil mix? Earthworm castings. Earthworm castings are also a source of nutrients. However, I don't know if I would consider them fertilizer. Yeah, and then there's also other inputs that I'll add that aren't technically fertilizers, things that just kind of like promote cation exchange capacity, like clays, like bentonite clay, zeolite. That's a lot of it in terms of like fertilizer, is just I use organic dry amendments that I mix into soil with a biology source like earthworm castings, insect frass, and then my inert, organic matter, things like peat moss, coco coir, whatever. So that's mostly what I do. I don't actually buy much of anything that is like a nutrient source except for those micronized inputs. But I like to use a lot of fulvic acids and enzymes and amino acids also to kind of like promote the availability and mimic root exudates, which is like the function of how plants make nutrients readily available.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.